Welcome, Alexander. Thanks for being on here today. You're a man of many talents and disciplines. You're a real estate entrepreneur, yoga certified. I don't know if you're currently teaching, but we'll get into that. Psychedelic explorer, spiritual traveler, father and husband, right? Welcome to the show. I want to start off with how we met, which was this men's group called Empower Brotherhood. The curious story that I'm figuring out is how it got started. Seems like a bunch of people from California moved down to Austin during the pandemic and just started something awesome. Is that kind of similar to you came over during the pandemic or a little after?
Yeah, I'm just here in Austin recently. You know, it's only been a couple months.
Just this year?
Yeah, just in 2023. I moved my family here, and a lot of people have been moving from California to Texas and even New York to Texas, but obviously there's a migration right now that's happening from Texas to Florida and to Arizona. I think a lot of people are going to these states for a lot of different reasons: cost of living, community, and just living a more balanced life. Whereas some of these other states have had pretty intense lockdowns or restrictions on life. And, you know, Texas is definitely a great place to be. I'm so happy I'm here. I'm so happy to be here with you, and really grateful that we met through community. Good brother, friend of mine, Coach Preston Smiles. I did some work with him years ago back in LA, and he's a very inspiring brother. And just glad that we got to meet as part of his workout community. And there's just so much power in brotherhood and so much power in community when men come together. And, you know, it's the opposite of like a frat house or, you know, boot camp, but we're really supporting each other, you know, emotionally, physically. We push each other hard. All these beautiful things that come from community and a supportive brotherhood. And that's really like what I've devoted a large part of my life to, is supporting men in brotherhood.
Which has changed my life completely. I think the progression for every young man on that journey of knowing themselves is you have your family, which usually is going to be the source of your troubles, right? Yeah. I think our parents' generation didn't really have a good blueprint on what they were doing with themselves and with their kids. I'm speaking for myself. And then once you're on your own, and, you know, we'll definitely come to your awakening moments too, because pretty wild that your heart stopped and you died for 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Oh, for any journey for a man, a lot of times we either have to die, lose an arm, get some kind of sickness, or in my case, it was a medicine journey to ego die, mm-hmm. to wake up and to not be a lone wolf and seek that community out, which is what I did with the Empower Brotherhood. And here we are today.
A man's path to humility, right? A lot of men won't, let's call it wake up, or won't come into full awareness of how they're being or how they're acting or how they're behaving in society or their job. And, you know, they're go, super ambitious. And, you know, I can see this because I definitely was that guy. I was very ambitious, very, you know, in New York, I wanted to be very successful. And, you know, I was following the blueprint kind of a real estate broker and, you know, what it meant to be, you know, cutthroat and a salesperson, right? I'm sure you can relate, you know,
the sales environment,
being a salesperson, right? So when you're in that profit-driven first model, it can bring you out of yourself. It can bring you out of who you truly are. It almost certainly will bring you out of who you truly are and how you truly be, right? So for a man to wake up, and from all the men that I've seen, you know, come to transformative awareness, the invitation usually comes in the form of injury or in the form of a sacred, you know, ceremony. There's going to be some sort of pain involved, and there's going to be some sort of initiation involved. And, you know, you're 29. So you're right around that age of Saturn returns where a lot of men have that questioning of like, who am I really? What is my purpose on this planet? What am I here to do? And, you know, that's when it happened for me. I actually had my near-death experience at 27, and that changed my fundamental awareness of how I saw God, because before that, I didn't really believe in God. I didn't really trust. I didn't trust in my own divinity, I guess, or in a collective divinity or religion, and I was very scared, right? So I basically, in a moment of 2 minutes, I wasn't taking care of my health. I wasn't, really loving myself. I was just pushing and, very, very ambitious, and just was neglecting so many parts of, being human. And that brought me to a point where I had to completely surrender. My spirit came out of my body, and I looked down basically on a corpse.
Wow.
And my heart stopped. And then, I came back into my body, and I never saw life the same. And, I proceeded to look for answers, but then I realized the world that I was in, the life that I had created, was all about, money and business and promiscuity and, looking really good. And I realized that I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have anybody to talk to about this awakening, this spiritual thing that I just experienced. Nobody would have understood what that was. And people would have, called me crazy, or they would have just been over their head, too much for them. No, that's, so I realized that my social circle needed to change. And I realized that I was embarking on the hero's journey at that point at 27. So that was 9 years ago.
So you're 36.
Yeah, I'll be 37 next month, July.
Okay, cool. Birthday coming up.
Yeah.
Man, I'm trying to envision you're at the gym, probably on the floor, on the bench press. It must have been scary for your trainer. I know you had a personal trainer.
Well, I shouldn't have been there, right? So I had partied the night before, and I just had this sort of relentless ambition, not in a good way, but, partying, definitely, partaking in substances and partying and all of this. And, just, I guess you could say it was similar to like a Wolf of Wall Street culture, where it was like, alpha male, push, make more money, and the ego gratification that came from that, right? A lot of men would be very happy with, and, it fulfilled a lot of parts of my ego and my confidence. But at the same time, there was something inside of me that needed to be expressed that I didn't understand about myself. And I suffered. I was tortured by it. I was tortured by having this beautiful heart and just being this like loving person, and then not being able to express that love in my career and my business, and, or even at the club, with the alcohol and the drinking and the girls, and, driving a BMW, living on the High Line. Like, on the outside, everybody like sort of looked up to me, say, hey, you made it, bro. Like, oh, you can travel whenever you want. You have all this freedom. You're dating a beautiful girl, like all of these things. And I just didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel fulfilled. So I had achieved, I went to a great college. I got a job. I rose to the top of my industry, 30 under 30, all of these things in real estate. Yeah. And I just didn't really care. And at one point when I left New York, I had these like accolades and trophies, and I just like didn't really care about them. And, now I approach it from a different standpoint. I look back at my achievements, and I look back at that ambition, and I respect it. I respect, I was a kid from the Bronx, making his way. I didn't grow up in a super rich family. My parents were teachers, and they taught me a lot of good stuff. Both my parents were athletic directors and coaches and physical fitness people, so they were both teachers. And, I always kind of pushed that aside when I was growing up, and I didn't really fully appreciate them like I do now, because I always wanted to make more money. And I was sort of programmed and conditioned by, hip hop culture, or, hustling, and, all these movies like, hey, if you make money, you can do whatever you want. And if you can do whatever you want, you're going to be happy. And what I realized is that was an outward journey. And it brought me to the point where I couldn't do anything more, but I had to go inward to survive. For my health, I had to go inward to really discover, who I am and remember who I am on the soul level. So that's how my spiritual journey began about 10 years ago.
Wow, incredible. I feel like people who are extreme can really relate to other extreme men, because somehow pushing your edges allows you to find yourself faster. Because if people say if you're going through a shitstorm, don't just wally through it.
Yeah.
Get through that thing. Just take tons of action, even if it's in the wrong direction, because you're going to wake up eventually and get course corrected. I guess they say God can't steer a parked car. But extreme people like yourself get out of that rut pretty quickly, because unfortunately accidents, it'll lead you. You go so fast, you'll probably crash,
maybe. I mean, a lot of them die too, right? So
true. A lot of them do, yeah.
To me, it's balance. It's about a masculine and feminine balance. So what I discovered was that I couldn't keep yanking out. I couldn't keep pushing in my masculine any further, because my body was suffering and I was neglecting my body, right? So I had to develop an inward practice. I had to start doing yoga. I had to start meditating. I had to, really understand what these sacred plants and ceremony was about in order to heal myself. So, for me to be healthy, it's really about, good nutrition, because food becomes a part of us, and lifestyle. For me, that's like yoga, meditation, cold plunging, and my family, being loved and supported and having purpose that comes with being a father and an entrepreneur. So really just, it's been quite the journey. But I would say, extreme men, it's all relative. And I talked about this in another podcast where, you're only as tough until Mother Nature sends that earthquake or that tornado or that tidal wave, and then you're humbled, right? So it's only a matter of time for a man that life will humble us, and we realize that we're a part of it all. And we realize that we're 70, 80% water, and we come from the womb, we come from the mother, we come from the earth, and everything that makes our bodies came from the earth, grew from the earth, right? So, it's such a important thing to understand that, where we come from on the ancestral level, to understand how our ancestors lived, to understand all the changes in our modern life and contemporary culture that are so different than the way that we used to live. So a lot of my journey has been about understanding what this body needs. And a lot of that healing for me has been found in nature and connecting with the earth, after growing up in a place like New York City.
The concrete jungle.
Exactly.
I love what you're saying too. It's that balance is something that, for me, I found balance when I was burnt out, similar to yourself, climbing the corporate ladder, just pushing. A lot of young guys can relate to that. You have a chip on your shoulder and you want to make something of yourself and you want to make a name for yourself. So you think you have to do that by achieving and doing things. But you do that so long, you climb that ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong building. And you look over and you realize, okay, I've been doing so much. I need to focus on the inner self and the being. And we decided to take a year off, similar to like yourself. I found it because I read this book called The Power of Now and Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
Those two books, because those are subtle, I highly recommend to read. Yeah. It's your mind talking to itself with some great ideas. The 4-Hour Work Week helped me overcome some fears and helped me realize that I don't need to work so hard for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's right here, right now.
Yes.
And that's what The Power of Now also taught me too, is how to not identify with the mind. So those two freedoms, I said, okay, I have to travel. Where do I go? Picked Bali, Indonesia. And my wife and I, we sold everything. And we were just extreme, radical, right? We just had to do something like that. Because getting out of the country or taking a nomadic year is one of the most important pilgrimages I think everybody should do. It's just a way to really unplug from the capitalist machine, unplug from whatever America is promoting, and you get to have quiet time to really start reflecting and knowing who you are. Met my life coach there, incredible guy, but the power was when we lived in Hawaii, did this psychedelic medicine journey, and that is where it totally went from darkness to light. It was a complete ego death. I realized I had years of repressed emotions, tons of traumas to heal through. I had to feel it all and heal it all. And it looked like a lot of crying and a lot of supportive space that was held from my wife. And it really healed that part of me. You know, the integration work, like you were saying, meditation, yoga, journaling, reflecting, asking the right questions, but then also doing the uncomfortable things that, you know, that I had to do. Specifically, I had to reach out to my father, had to reconcile that relationship. Some of the hardest things that I had to do, I guess they call it shadow work. I'm not exactly familiar with what that is, but these methods open up the window for you to be able to look at yourself and tell yourself the right answers, because nobody really is going to tell you what you need to do. It's that process of listening to yourself and hopefully being humbled, because as the ancient Greeks said, to die before you actually die, you'll then know how to start living.
Beautiful. Absolutely. You know, I would even say, you know, yeah, it's beautiful to hear your story, and it's beautiful to hear how you took action after that experience. So you applied what you experienced in ceremony. And, you know, the way that I think about this now, you know, after, you know, hundreds of ceremonies and journeys and deep introspection and integration, is there's no such thing as the psychedelic experience. Right. So that there's a lot of this, you know, trending, you know, psychedelic journeying and mushrooms and peyote and ayahuasca. And a lot of people think, oh, if I go to this ceremony, it's going to heal me. Right. And if you go to the ceremony, it's not going to heal you. It's not going to do the work for you. It might show you some things, but especially with a plant like ayahuasca, she doesn't play. Right? She doesn't mess around. So really, like, there's no psychedelic experience. It's just a perspective on reality, but it is reality. You're going into the spirit world. You're going into an altered state of consciousness, but that altered state of consciousness is not any different than our regular 3D consciousness navigating through life, right? So that spirit world exists just as much as the here and the now and what our senses are perceiving, you know, on this wavelength, right? So I think people separate it a lot. They're like, oh, I'm going to go to cloud 9, or I'm going to go to this dimension and I'm going to heal everything, or I'm going to, you know, but it's really about what you bring back. It's really about, you know, okay, so just like traveling, just like leaving the country, just like, you know, having that privilege and that opportunity to go and experience another culture, to experience another way of life that's not the United States, has been super, super powerful and super transformative in my life. And it's such a blessing. You know, it's such a blessing to have the means and the resources to be able to do that. And for that, I'm grateful. But yeah, I think a lot of people think about like, oh, I'm going to take these mushrooms or I'm going to take these psychedelics and it's going to heal me. No, you're going to heal yourself. And the mushrooms can be an ally. Like Ram Dass says, you know, psilocybin is my friend, right? I believe that's true, you know, and I believe these things are here on this planet to help us and to assist us, but not if you're lazy and not if you're unwilling to look in those dark crevices and those traumas from childhood. And there's a lot of scary stuff that comes up in these journeys, and it's really up to you to bite off the right amount, not bite off more than you can chew. Well, I have bit off more than I can chew. So I would say, after doing that, I realized, okay, well, what's a good metric? It's kind of like working out. Are you going to go to the gym for like 7 hours and train for 7 hours? I mean, you're probably not going to be in the gym for another like 7 days after that. Or are you going to go to the gym an hour a day or 2 hours, for a couple days, right? It's really understanding what we can handle, understanding what we can actually apply to our life, not quit your job right away or make these drastic changes without really like taking the time and being patient and understanding, what this means for your life. So I would say it's a combination of like big moves like you took. You moved to Bali, you went nomadic. You were called to that. You knew it was the right thing to do. So that was the time for you to make a big move, a big step. Whereas for a lot of people, if they've been in a career for 15, 20 years, 10 years, and they have an identity with that career, they have a skill, I wouldn't say like uproot, something that you've spent so much time on and devoted so much of your energy to, thinking that, now that you've done psychedelics, that there's some, magic career around the corner. You're going to have to work hard in that new career too. You're going to have to go through the motions and rebuild yourself in that new identity. So that's a lot of what I had to experience, leaving New York City, and that personal transformation, that personal journey. It's not easy. I don't think it's easy for anyone, and it certainly wasn't easy for me. But, you keep at it, you persevere, and you learn gratitude. You learn, whatever's in your bank account or whatever amount of possessions you have, you just really learn. And I'm sure this, being a nomad, or, that the joy is not in our possessions, obviously, but like in our experience and in the here, in the now. And that's really where through experience, you really discover who you are. Yep.
Yeah, the joy of life, just like you were saying, is the quality of your presence. And that's the biggest one, I think. And then being in alignment and knowing yourself and knowing why you want to do what you want to do.
Yeah. That
is what being nomadic teaches you is, man, I spend so much money on random things I don't need. Yeah. So you realize you get off that capitalistic treadmill, that farm. We think a lot of people get farmed in this country for the bigger corporations. Mm-hmm. Whether you're being farmed by fast food companies, you're being farmed by the cheap retail companies, you realize that you don't need anything to be living an incredible life. One of the most impactful things is
good nutrition.
Yes, you need
good community.
You need good clean water.
But from the material sense, I feel you definitely not like we're in a material world. We grow up in a consumerist culture, right? There's billboards for everything that make us feel like we're not good enough. So we have to buy this, we have to buy that, right? And it's like, you need a soap, a beard cream, like 17 different oils, when you could just use like coconut butter and like shea butter and like maybe a few things for like everything, right? To moisturize your skin. And, it's like so many products. There's like 46,000 products at a grocery store, right? Like what the fuck, So
I think for any material man, the big challenge would be is how minimalist can you get yourself just to balance out. For a span of time, I just had maybe 3 shirts, like 5 pieces of clothing, and I didn't even have a cell phone for 3 months. I kind of just disconnected, unplugged.
Nice.
And it was awesome. We were living in Hawaii, so it's pretty easy to do that.
Beautiful.
But tell me about your nomadic journey. Like, it's something that it's still in my heart. I still have the travel bug. I'm planning another nomadic year. Scares my wife to death. Because I just have that adventure in me. I think Tim Ferriss puts it too, like for every few months of working, It takes a month to reset.
Yep.
To do the hobbies, to have the conversations, to do the long dinners, to take the naps,
Yep.
To do the yoga. And then so every few years, take a longer. So that way you have mini retirements, not just burning out, waiting to the end of something, but tell me about your nomadic year.
Well, I fully, you being 29 and, you're not a father yet,
Nope.
right? So, I'm so glad that I did what I did before I became a father, because now, I did a lot of that outward journey, a lot of that travel, and really did what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, at 29 or 30, I took that leap and went down to Brazil on a one-way ticket. And,
Nice.
and I just did what I wanted to do. I had never really been musical or a singer, and I wanted to activate my voice. And I had known of this woman who was doing a voice retreat in Brazil. And I'm like, yeah, I want to go sing. I want to go it's something, from a young age, like I was encouraged to sing by my dad, but we were an athletic family. We weren't really a musical family. Mm-hmm. So, I grew up in a way that was promoting the sports and the things that our family was good at, which was, triathlon and swimming and biking and running and, even golf. I played some golf and some tennis, but all these sports, I was almost naturally good at. But then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go try and do something that doesn't feel as natural. But the thing that I learned about activating my voice, the thing I learned about singing, was it is natural. And when we speak, if you're a singer, take James Earl Jones, for example, somebody who has really perfected their voice, somebody who's really, has that resonance, that's health in the body on some level. It's a deep knowing of yourself, a deep knowing of your voice, being able to express yourself through your throat chakra is a super, super important part of being human. Wow. And it's something that a lot of us have forgot. And it's just extremely important. And I encourage everybody to really activate their voice, activate their body, and to really, start to love your voice, start to love wherever you're at.
You were talking about activating your voice. You grew up a sports family, just like I did. I played soccer my whole life and never even touched music, never even got creative. Is that part of balancing is that part of being in balance? Is being creative as well? Or
maybe, maybe. I think for everybody, the path to grace, inner grace is different. For me, singing was really, really beautiful because I would be inspired by people that just filled a room with their presence and filled a room with their voice and their love. And, once I started to work with shamanic medicine and once I started to activate my voice and realize that I have a powerful voice and realize I have this powerful body and I can do whatever I want with it, right? So singing for me was just hard. It was hard in the beginning. It was difficult because I had all this conditioning. And, I remember my father told me a story when he was in high school. And he said that he had a music teacher in high school. And that music teacher told him that he couldn't sing. And what kind of music teacher says that, right? What kind of music teacher does that?
Yeah.
But it really scarred my father. And it pushed my father in more of an athletic direction, which in some sense is fine, but the damage that was done, this was probably freaking 60 years ago when my dad was in high school. So the damage that was done from that to him psychologically, I don't even think he realized, but then he would tell me that story. At one point I remember my dad saying, yeah, we don't really sing in this family. Wow. And maybe that discouraged me. Obviously, I'm responsible for choosing my path, not blaming my dad for anything. My dad's awesome. But just witnessing and understanding that, when we're young, adults can have such a huge impact on how we see ourselves. Because, when we're young or we're in high school or middle school, elementary school, we're so impressionable. And we're looking for guidance. We're looking for reflections of like, oh, am I going to be good at this? Am I going to be good at that? What am I here to do? Like, what am I here to explore? So it obviously, like, in the public education system, or, every teacher is a human being, and every human being has trauma of some sort, right? So it's unfortunate when people reach their limit and they can no longer encourage their students or encourage their people around them. So that was just one thing that I had to overcome, because, I never saw myself as a singer. I never really saw myself as a musician, and I wouldn't even call myself, a musician, but I am musical. I can play, the drum. I can sing some songs, and it just feels so good to like give myself permission to do that. I had to overcome a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of, just challenging mental blocks that I had created and absorbed, through my life. And, now I'm just really gentle with myself and really loving with myself. And I pretty much sing every single day. So I sing in the car, and, even a mantra practice can be very powerful for meditation. But activating my voice, 10 years ago really, really changed my life, because I started to see myself as more of a beautiful being, and being of vibration and positivity. And, through sound, I might not be an opera singer or the greatest singer on earth, and that's okay, but just allowing myself to express in that way was life-changing, and just changed the way that I proceeded with my life. And I sing with my wife, and my wife's an amazing singer.
Oh, right? That's cool.
So that's really cool. It's nice to harmonize with her. It's nice to create with her, and that's a really beautiful part of our relationship, especially when we're in circle or we're in a ceremony and we're singing together as a husband, wife, mother, and father. One day our son will sing with us too. So it's just a really beautiful thing to do as a family and as a community as well.
Speaking about family, I want to get into how you met your wife and that progression into fatherhood, because that's where I'm personally been with my wife for about married 6 years, been together 7. And of course, any great partnership, life is just so much better, right? When you can find your soulmate or that vibrational match, it's a beautiful thing. And honestly, I feel so blessed, and I feel so grateful to have a partner that compliments you in every single way. It's also pretty incredible how a loving woman can open you up spiritually. It's a beautiful thing. You guys met in Brazil? She's from Brazil?
My wife is from Brazil, Aishel. And we met in Brazil. We actually met doing deep inner work on ourselves in ceremony. So it was in a place called Alto Paraíso, and it means high paradise, and it's a higher jungle region of central Brazil. And there was a shamanic festival going on for a couple weeks, and sure enough, the love of my life was there waiting for me, and it was a really cool story how we met and fell in love. And
now you got to tell the story.
It's been a journey, so this was back in the beginning of 2017. And I had just finished my singing retreat in Brazil. So I went down there for that, and then met a bunch of people there. And, I had a 3-month visa in Brazil. So I'm like, I'm going to stay here for all of it. I'm going to experience as much of this country and language and culture as I can. So we just continued on and traveled. And I was there with a good friend, my friend Charlie. Shout out to Charlie. But he lives in Hawaii now. But sure enough, me and Charlie and a few other people were like, let's go to this shamanic conference and go deeper on ourselves. And there were all sorts of medicine men and chiefs and medicine carriers from tribes and indigenous cultures from around the world. So it was a very, very special thing. There were a lot of people that met at that conference that went on to do amazing things. So I would just say I met my wife there, and we had kind of seen each other and over the days that passed, and I kind of had my insecurities come up. I'm like, oh, she's so beautiful, and like, what a goddess. Like, I don't know if I should go up and talk to her. I don't even know if I'm worthy enough. Or like, she would wear, she was gifted a headdress by, my wife is Brazilian. She has indigenous Brazilian, so she was gifted a headdress by one of the tribesmen, one of the medicine men who was in love with her, right? So he gave her a headdress from the forest, from the Amazon. And I'm like looking at this woman and I'm like, oh my God, like, what would it be like to be with like a spiritual Brazilian woman like that? And, I kind of was like, had her on this pedestal and was just like, wow, like, I mean, there's no way, there's no way I can like go up to her. All these guys are talking to her. So I'm just kind of like peeping, I'm just kind of like, checking out the situation, and, I was always that guy in the past in New York where I would approach a woman and I would be confident, ask for her number or like show that I'm interested and be very forward. Right. But for the first time in my life, I was kind of like really scared, I was like, wow, this is like a real powerful spiritual woman. And I'm like scared shitless. I'm like, whoa. So I actually don't go up to her. I like find her on Instagram. I'm like total like wimping out here. And I find her on Instagram and I realize that she's not like, she doesn't live in Brazil, but she lives in Canada.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh, she must speak English. I was like, that's good. So if I go up to her and talk to her, she's going to like speak my language. I find out later she speaks 4 languages.
Wow.
So, I mean, after the next ceremony, right, there was this maloca that held a lot of people in Brazil. And after that next ceremony, it was one of the toughest ceremonies of my life. I vomited on myself and it was just like brutal. I had to face a lot of my insecurities, my ego, identities, and just really go deep into who I am. And it was almost like really scary. I had to face off with a lot of fears. And it was after that ceremony, I had to go to the bathroom, clean my white shirt up and, pull it back together, as we say, right? I was disheveled and like a total mess. Some people say there's no such thing as drinking too much ayahuasca, but there is, right? So a lot of that ambition that we talked about before, right? Whenever they offered another cup, I would always be like, yes, right?
That's what I would say too.
And I would say to people out there, like, yes and no. Like, if you're going to drink the medicine, take the responsibility of drinking the medicine, right? That cup could be also gifted, or that cup could be served to someone else too, right? So I look back on my journey, and in the beginning, I was like, okay, this sacred medicine is going to heal me, right? So I would drink more of it. But then was I fully honoring it? Was I fully meeting it, in the level of love and intensity that it was meeting me and wanting to help me? And the answer is like, no. I think I wasn't able to handle the amount of spiritual power at times that, this medicine wanted to take me to. But I did experience it and I did learn from it, right? So it's like when we bite off more than we can chew, we learn a lot. When we fall on our face, when we get injured, when we have these serious experiences in our life, we learn a lot. So I don't regret any of it. I'm grateful for all of it. But it was after that super intense ceremony that I met my queen. And she actually came up to me and we started talking. And then I realized that she had just as a rough night as I did, and that she was tired. I was tired. We didn't get much sleep. And I said, can I give you a massage? Not knowing that she was a healer and a body worker. And
oh, wow.
I just started, connecting with her. And that was pretty much it. We got married. 6 months later.
Wow.
And
amazing. So
yeah.
That was when you were 30, 31. You had your son another year after that, like at 32?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll be 37 in a a couple weeks, and had Phoenix around 32. Yeah.
You know, of course, being your queen is the most important step to this process. But how did you transition into starting a family? Because sometimes it can be scary. Like, I don't know when the right timing is, right? Like, or should we wait a little bit? Like, the biological time clock, people's voices. Like, how did you navigate that? Or was it just something that happened?
A little bit of both. I mean, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but my wife's a few years older than me. And she doesn't look it. But, you know, it was just time. You know, when I married my wife, I knew that children would be a part of that decision, right? So I had a lot of fear come up around committing and getting married, and you know, there's a lot of societal talk and shit, you know, just nonsense that's out there. It's like, oh, you're married, you're done, you got to be with one woman for the rest of your life. It's not going to be fun, and that's all bullshit, because when you're with an amazing person and you're both on that trajectory of self-growth and love, right? And you know, I believe like nobody like loves themselves fully. I think we're all here on this planet to experience and to know love on a deeper level. So I don't think anybody like is like fully expressed in the amount of power and love that they have inside of them. So that means whatever partner that you choose, it's not so much compatibility. It's more about the trajectory of how you're showing up for yourself each and every day. And there's going to be stuff that comes up in relationship. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes up in relationship. It's almost inevitable. And, you know, it's almost like your best partner is going to trigger you and bring up the stuff.
Yeah.
And that's spiritual growth. And it's like, I look at my grandfather, Lloyd Schmaltz, and he was married for 67 years.
Wow.
And it was just such a beautiful thing. And I mean, he had 4 children, my mom being the first. And I'm just so grateful for like that grandfather, Grandpa Lloyd. And just I didn't fully understand it till later in my life, how committed, how devoted, and just what a patriarch that he was and what that takes, you know? So I really, you know, he just passed recently, and I just want to take a second to honor him and to really, to thank him, you know, for holding my mom's side of the family together. And obviously, you know, we're in an imperfect world and a lot of things are really tough, but he did it, you know, he did it. And he grew up without a father, and he showed up as a father and a grandfather and a great grandfather, you know, in his life. So I really look up to that man. He was a Marine. And, you know, this is one of the reasons that I work with veterans now, because a lot of people in my family were first responders and veterans. My brother's in the Army in San Antonio. Okay. So, you know, it's just really, it's on my heart to work with people that serve and to work with people that make that ultimate devotion and ultimate commitment to this country. And, you know, it's just, I really want to serve and help those people, just like I've served and helped myself, you know, being through a lot of trauma in my own right. But just getting back to the story, getting back to, you know, how I met my wife. Yeah, it was a very different experience of approaching a woman, because she came up to me, and, you know, it was almost like the spirit of our child brought us together, and the spirit of the medicine brought us together, because we were both very intentionally there to heal ourselves. And I didn't go to Brazil looking for a wife. I didn't go to Brazil, you know, really with that intention. I went to Brazil to grow myself, to heal myself. And sure enough, you know, I came back with a girlfriend, and shortly after, that girlfriend became my wife. So just so blessed and grateful that journey, you know, I had struggled on Tinder and Match.com and all of that stuff when I didn't really know myself. But the second I went all in on myself and and my healing and made that a priority, sure enough, my queen appeared as part of that journey. So the universe responds. The universe is like, okay, you want to heal. Okay, well, here's the perfect person for you to go on this journey with. And that's, for better, in good times, bad times, right? It's not always what you want, but it's what you need. And I feel like life gives us what we need, not what we want. A lot of the time, pretty much all the time. So, a lot of that is saying yes, just living in a state of perpetual yes, or infinite go, as my buddy Rudy Reyes says, infinite go.
That's awesome.
But just becoming a yes man, and like showing up to these workouts with you, man, and like, going every Thursday and just pushing our bodies and our mindsets, to grow ourselves and to just be more positive in our life and to just be less scared and less timid and less like just let that lion roar and let that courage come out in every aspect of our life. And I think for a lot of men, or, for people that do have that courage inside them and do have that, like, yes, sometimes like we can say yes to too much and then we get overwhelmed and we learn what that's all about. And then as we mature and get older, we get wiser. We learn what to say yes to. And then we start to say a lot of no's, like, I don't need this, I don't need that, or this is not, in my best interest, or, this is not me serving at my highest, so I need to cut out everything else, right? So
I love what you were saying there, which I feel like gets intensified, that boundary gets intensified, what to say no to, because with your time, because the opportunity cost, like you could be spending time with your son, you could be spending time with your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And having a wife, like I'm very selective when I do go out with friends, which friends are they have the same values as me. Like you don't just waste your time with anybody.
Yeah.
And tell me more about fatherhood. Like, how is it like, how did it change the relationship? Or what you were saying as well too, like your wife can, I think you said, trigger you in the right kind of ways for your growth and development. One tip on that I loved, I had received this great advice. Like I had been wanting something from the relationship and he flipped the script and asked me, am I embodying what I want? Am I giving what I want? And that's why your partner is really a great reflection, a great mirror on how you're supposed to evolve.
Yes.
I can only imagine with kids.
That's it. That's what it is. I mean, that's what marriage is about, and what partnership is about. I'm learning to stop saying the word divine as much, like divine partnership, divine love. It's just love and it's just partnership. Okay, it's like we think of all these things as like so heavenly or so like out of body, but no, it's right here, right now, full presence, like on earth. It doesn't have to be divine sex, divine love. It's like, no, we're human beings and we're here, right? So it's just the human experience. So to answer your question about fatherhood, I mean, I don't think I was prepared to become a father. I don't think anybody is ever prepared, because it will shift you and it will change the way you think about being a man. It'll change the way you think about yourself and your family. And it really becomes a daily act of devotion and a daily act of sacrifice. And definitely in these past couple of years, I've had to sacrifice a lot of, these decisions in my decision making. I've had to say no to a lot of things in order to plant those seeds and be there for my son. And a lot of times that can be really difficult. And, But then you look at your son and you look at your child and you're just like, I understand why I'm here. I understand what's really important. And I understand what legacy means. I understand, like, in many, many years from now, what I'm going to care about and what's really going to matter, right? So that's why spending time with family, spending time with my son is so important. And, I'm just not taking it for granted. And
the legacy piece is important because we wouldn't be here if our parents decided not to have kids.
Exactly.
And apparently there's going to be some kind of population collapse because a lot of people are choosing not to. There's a lot of infertility, which leads into health and kind of toxicity of our environment. If we were to strip away all of this progress, yet we're failing as a society to its most basic biological purpose, which is procreate, because I love humans and I love being alive. Do you think it's just a byproduct, this population collapse is a byproduct of toxic environments?
I mean, if we want to go down the rabbit hole,
I'm taking it there.
We got to do another podcast, but I don't believe in an outside enemy. I believe in like outside forces. And I do believe a lot of these forces are going against our spiritual evolution and going against the best expression of ourselves as humans. And there are attacks on our health. And we have to understand, are we, fighting violently back, or are we doing Aikido and sort of, rolling with the punches and rolling with, like our food system, for example, right? It's, this spiritual journey and this spiritual path is like, we are under attack in some sense, and it's perfect. It's the way it's meant to be in order for us to grow. But a lot of it's very uncomfortable, and it's not kind, and it's not nice the way that we're treated by government. And, we have to understand these things. We have to be put in the pressure cooker for us to wake up, to express ourselves and rise up and come together and know love on a deeper plane. No love. There's no other way to do it. This has happened in every revolution and every war throughout history. The people have to get it together and realize they need less government to rise up and take their freedom, right? Freedom's not free. And I think a lot of us are asleep, and a lot of us have been asleep because, let's face it, the food puts us asleep, the addictions, the vaccines are not good for you. I think it's pretty much like out there in the open now. The studies and all the research have shown that this thing did not help. And even just from personal experience, without getting too political or too much into it, my brother's a medic in the Army, and he gave the vaccine, and he watched people drop. He watched people go to the ER, right? So there's no doubt in my mind that is not medicine, and that was not here to help us. That was not here to help humanity. So do I believe in a depopulation agenda? Do I believe that we've been programmed to not want children because it's a strain on the environment and all that bullshit? Yeah, I believe that there's this total agenda like ESG. Look at what happened in Sri Lanka. Look at what has happened all the world with like this World Economic Forum. And, we got to wake up. We got to wake up and realize that Mother Earth loves us, and we got to love her back. And that no politician or no, governmental influencer, right, can ever tell you how to treat the earth, and you got to know for yourself. You got to know like what your carbon footprint is. You got to know if you're really making a detrimental. Don't listen to Greta and be like, Greta's telling you not to like, come on, people. Like, we got to really wake up and be realistic, grounded, and practical, that we're not the ones causing the major planet. It's these larger corporations that are taking advantage of us and then making us feel like we're the ones fucking up the earth.
Wow. I never even thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's powerful. That makes me think, like what your personal carbon footprint is.
And don't get me wrong, like every decision that we make, like how much plastic we use, all of these decisions are super important. We can all be more sustainable.
Yes.
We can all move towards growing our own food and, living, in a more sustainable way with the earth. But we really can't beat ourselves up to the point where we're judging ourselves on a daily basis, getting a plastic bag at the store. Like, obviously, like sometimes I forget, I bring my reusable bags to the store, but like I'm not a bad person. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost like the agenda out there is like, oh, you pay 10 cents for a bag. Like, it's like fuckery. It's like, it's not, I mean, be responsible, do the best you can, and continue to grow and continue to be better. But don't let anyone tell you you're a bad human being, because, like, let's face it, we grew up in this world, in this society, and we're all just doing the best that we can. So I think governments and politicians especially use that as a power tool, you know, use that as a manipulative way to essentially get people to feel like they're not good enough, or that they need to take some action that the governments want them to take, or that the companies want them to take. You know,
this is really hitting home. I love that. And for people who've ever watched any eye-opening documentaries that kind of cause a reaction and emotion, I love what you're saying too. Don't judge yourself, but just improve and be conscious of it and see how much better you can be. And everything takes decades and years to really shift and move. And really, we're not saving the planet, we're saving ourselves, because all the planet has to do is just one big old ice age, one huge volcano or whatever, and it can reset, which is why I love Graham Hancock, because he says we have reset a few times already before.
And then let's face it, we're in a loneliness epidemic. We're in a health epidemic, right? Mental health, physical health, right? We need to have community conversations about better food, clean air, clean water, clean soil, right? This is the vision. This is what we need to come together as humans and decide is important. You know, if they're building a parking garage over here in Barton Springs, right? So that destination has become so popular, they need more parking. So now they're going to, you know, develop around that. We have to, you know, come together as a community and decide, you know, is that the best thing for the community? And we really need to honor our resources and not take them for granted, and really fight against anybody that is, or anybody that's using, you know, bottled water is one of the, you know, the way companies take water from the earth or from springs, bottle it up and sell it back to us, when it's our human right, it's our God-given right to have access to that water. But a lot of us don't, so we buy bottled water. That's a crime. That's a crime against humanity. And I really, plastic bottled water is a crime against humanity. And as humans, we need to evolve and call these corporations out and just be like, there's so much manipulation. Like, companies will be like, this bottle is 100% recyclable and it's plastic. And it's like, you're bottling water that's from the earth. We're human beings on this earth. We should have access to it, and you're selling it back to us. So it doesn't really make sense. And I think as humans rise up and take their power and their freedom back, we're going to have to address the water. And it's already being addressed, but it's definitely something that needs to be at the front of the discussion and priority, because water is life, and our bodies are water. And like, if we don't start honoring, respecting, loving, and treating the water with sacredness, as we do in ceremony, you know, we have water prayers, and we pray that we will always have clean water. We pray that we will always have access to water that'll nourish our bodies, because the second that stops, we realize how important it is. And just a lot of people aren't realizing how important it is right now, until fresh, clean water runs out. And then, you know, there's going to be chaos, right? Let's nip it in the bud, and let's start having these conversations now, and just doing better on the individual, collective. And that's why community is so important, you know, because we can't do it all alone. And these problems can seem overwhelming. These problems can seem just like discouraging, right? There's so much work that needs to be done in this life, and there's so many things that need to be addressed. It's like, oh my God, if I'm doing it all myself, I'm never going to, right? This is why community is essential. We have to come together. We have to discover our purpose. We have to really understand how we fit into community and what we do best, so then other people can do what they do best, and then we get the problems solved, right?
I love what you're saying there, especially with the Barton Creek parking garage, or the Zilker Park one. there's definitely been a big response from the Austin community.
Yeah.
And definitely if you live in a place where you don't fit in, that is one good thing cities are good for, is you're going to find other like-minded people. But then you want to honestly find a city that has nature intact with it, which is why I love Austin, because got the nice river flowing through it, huge wildlife preserves, Barton Creek, different parks all around.
I used to say I fit in nowhere and I fit in everywhere at the same time. So it's like, for me, my journey of fitting in was just like confusing. You know, I didn't fit in high school, didn't fit in college, kind of fit in when I, you know, started working in real estate, but then realized I didn't fit in there either. So I think growing up in this country and like this whole idea of fitting in is, for me, it was like not willing to go off on that limb, not willing to go off and take that bold risk and have that courage to really discover who I am and what I'm here to do. You're going along with the agenda, you're going along with the consensus or with the group of people, which is fine as long as you're fine with that. But as you learn more and understand, you realize that you're here to be yourself, and you're here for self-discovery and self-development. And a lot of times that group consensus, almost most of the time, is not going to be completely aligned. And this is with spiritual communities or churches. Everybody gets what they need to a point, and it never seems to last, right? It never seems like, you know, you grow to a point in a relationship, and you know, and this is why like marriages that last for a long time or relationships that last for a long time, you don't leave, you know. Divorce is such a common option now. There's so much divorce, but it's like fitting in, right? Maybe I think this whole concept of fitting in is just flawed, right? Like you're a human being, you fit into your body, you're renting this body, but what else? You fit into nature. Right? So if you really understand your human nature, that's all you need to fit into. Be yourself and then go see who likes you and wants to be around you. But if you're like really being yourself, people will want to be around you because they're going to feel the love in your heart. They're going to feel the brightness in your eyes, and they're going to just light up when they're around you, and they're going to invite you to parties. They're going to invite you to, you know, jobs or whatever it is that you want to do. You know, if you're a happy human being, you're going to attract, and then you're also going to piss a lot of people off because you're so happy, right? And you're vibing so high. So you know, there's also, you know, one of my teachers said this last night in the sweat lodge. He's like, "There's arrows, you know, the arrows that fly by night. You know, be careful, and or not even be careful, but be aware. You know, be aware that there are people who don't have great intentions. And, you know, this is why, you know, training martial arts and, you know, be able to defend yourself, be able to transmute these energies and, you know, like, hey, I'm not feeling something sketchy over there. I'm not going to go in that direction, right? And just have that awareness, you know, all the time. So you're able to protect yourself and protect what's sacred and loving and important, protect your family, all of these things, you know. Because there is darkness out there, and the way that we come to our light and the way that we come to is by facing off with darkness. But the darkness is always right around the corner at any given moment. You know, you could be the happiest guy in the world, and then something could shift just like that, and then all of a sudden you're in a situation, right? So I think it's just, you know, this is why we train. This is why we, you know, keep our bodies healthy and alert and keep everything online, so we're able to navigate towards love. We're able to make those decisions.
It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Yeah. And also integrating that darkness part too is very important, because people who are naive or just maybe have been sheltered for so long, it's important to integrate that shadow part within yourself, within your own mind, and with what's out there in the world. It's something that I don't want to go too deep into in closing the podcast, but it's something that if you know the enemy and if you know what their techniques, their methods, they hide in plain sight. Like if you know what is against you, you'll know how to protect yourself, how to defend yourself, and just do the opposite. Use your reusable canteens instead of plastic, and essentially just try to not use plastic as much as possible because it's in everything. So much that it's now in our blood, and there's a certain percentage of plastics now in our bodies, and that's also part of that depopulation agenda is toxics in, toxics out. Let's put toxics into all these things, and instead of making things last for a long time like steel or other reusable things, it's one-time use, planned obsolescence. Paper plates, paper cups, just use it fast, toss it away. I wonder too, like when is the landfill going to get so vast that it's going to be somebody's job and get paid very well to pay attention to what we don't pay attention to?
Well, I don't know the answer to that.
Me neither. It might be a while.
And, I think when it comes to the environment, I think if everybody goes deep and learns to know themselves and love themselves and address their own inner demons or their own fears or their own insecurities, there is no outside enemy. So we've talked about these forces, we've talked about these agendas and these things, but really if you're going inward, there's enough to work on inside of you that the second you start to panic or the second you start to make some outside problem and mobilize people that, hey, you have to do something, you have to do this. If you don't know yourself, you're not really in a position to lead anyone else to do anything else about some outside thing, right? So this is why, I've come in and out of leadership in my own life because there's been periods where I'm like, hey, I got to do some work. I got to do some work before I go public again. I got to do some work before I'm going to put myself out there and just I don't want to be telling anyone how I live, or if I'm not fully aligned and honest and in integrity with myself, walking the walk, I don't want to talk the talk if I'm not walking the walk, right? So I can't be a leader. I can't be an example for anybody if I'm not loving myself, right? And having a past with addictive tendencies and all of these things, it just brings me back to humility. And maybe we can end on that note. And, humility and just this idea of just always knowing that if you go inward, there's more things to look at. And the outside world is just a reflection of what's going on inside. So if we're attracting negative energy, there's something going on inside of us that's like calling that in. And it's almost like this idea of resonance and harmony, right? Like the resonant field of different things that are in the universe, right? I went to a doctor the other day and he did muscle testing, and he has a method of testing for toxins in the body based on resonance. So he'll have vials of different toxins like mold and certain things, and he'll put them on your body and see how your body responds to that toxin being so close to your body. If the toxin is present in your body, the body is going to respond in a different way. You're going to get weaker. If you have a vial of mold, for example, and you have mold present in your system, the muscle testing is going to be weaker. So he measures all of that. So the same thing goes with just like mindset and what you're attracting, like law of attraction, vibrational, like if you have thoughts that are not completely serving you or that are not your highest and best thoughts, you're going to be attracting something else. Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's like if we're watching horror movies or we're watching violence, we're probably going to attract some, like subconsciously, we might not even be aware of it. But it's like if you're thinking about being violent or you're in fear and you're thinking about, fight. I really believe that, what energy flows where attention goes, something like that. I know I butchered that, but we create our reality. And I don't even, so many people don't even realize that. But you're calling it in.
So true.
Right? You're calling it in. And I see guns in Texas as a last resort. I see the right to bear arms as a super important part of our Constitution and the global political system. And I think that's a really important piece in freedom in this country and also the world. But I don't believe that we should ever really have to use them. I believe we're so powerful that if we focus on ourselves, that it won't get to that point, right? And you can stay strapped. You can have it. You can have it, and you can know how to use it. There's nothing wrong with that. I believe in that. And I think there's a lot of people out there who might be a little too trigger happy, and that's just going to cause death and destruction, right? Because there's no reason to really kill another human being, at this point in our evolution. We've had thousands and thousands of years of war, colonization, persecution, just horrible things that have happened. We don't need to go back to that. This is what we need to evolve out of. We need to reach that higher frequency as human beings. And I really believe that's possible. I have no fucking clue how we're going to get there. But I believe it starts with looking at yourself and taking responsibility for your own journey and your own thoughts and your own health. And, that might just lead to more love and less trigger happy maniacs. But I think God is in each and every one of us, and I think it's our responsibility as human beings, as spiritual beings, to really understand that connection and activate it within us, so we can just treat each other with more kindness and really heal the world. I think what I can't do, I hope my son can. And I know it's, we have millennia of damage to repair ancestrally, and wars and racism and all of this cultural destruction that has happened, right? We're put here to do something. We're put here to find gratitude and love, right? So I believe it really is all perfect, and sometimes I don't understand how. And it can be really confusing being human, and just coming back into my heart every single time. And sometimes it takes hours. Sometimes it takes lots of meditation or lots of long walks in nature, or sometimes even sleeping out in nature on the earth all night, and just being with the earth, and then realizing I'm safe, I'm protected, I'm meant to be here. My life has a purpose, and I just feel loved by the energy of the earth, the soil, the grass, the trees, the birds, the crickets. I'm so blessed to live in a place where I have access to that. And
I love that, man. Yeah, people can make a hell out of heaven or heaven out of hell in any situation. And cultivating and knowing yourself is huge, so that way you can create a heaven with your relationship with yourself.
Heaven on earth is within you.
Yeah. And as far as the darkness part, if you were saying it was awesome. If you conquer the enemy within, the enemy without can do you no harm.
Yeah.
And we encourage you guys to do your own work, to do the integration practice. Alexander, it's been incredible. Any projects in closing too that you want people to divert attention to, or anything that you want to promote?
Yeah, well, I'm, just moved to Austin a couple months ago. We have a number of events on the calendar. We work out every Thursday. We have a community there. So just hit me up, DM me, or Instagram, alexander.e.hill. We're doing some men's groups and some men's circles with Man Tribe. That's man.tribe on Instagram. And I'm just going to be doing more podcasting because I really love it. And I'm still doing some one-on-one coaching with men, and just becoming a better human being every single day. and showing up for myself and supporting those out there who I can assist, and staying humble and true to the path of fatherhood. And yeah, so just hit me up, and I'll let you know what's going on in Austin. And there's a lot of good things happening, so I'd love to get to know you and connect with you. Thanks.
Yep. Everybody, thanks for listening. Don't forget to comment. We'll respond to every single one. Hit the like button. I'll see you guys on the next one.